Welcome into Candlestick Chronicles, a 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Madson. I write about the 49ers over at NinersWire.com, part of the USA Today Sports Media Group. Joining me right now, Chris Biderman of the Sacramento Bee, and we're going to talk about the 49ers thumping the Jaguars 34-3 out in Jacksonville. But before we do that, we got to tell you about the homies over at Lamb Chops. SGLambchops.com is the website. That's also their Instagram handle, at SGLambchops. Follow them there. They have a new winter line coming out. It's all super sick, and it all looks super cozy and super high quality, as all of my Lamb Chops clothing is. Whether it's shorts, hoodies, t-shirts, it's the very best, and it's why it's the official clothing brand of Candlestick Chronicles.
I got my sweats on now. They are flawless. Sort of like that 49ers performance in Jacksonville.
It's a great call by you.
They're the
really great call by you.
They're the Week 10 Niners of sweatpants. So shout out to shout out to Lamb Chops.
And as comfortable as they are, they also check the number one box. They look dope. Everybody knows that's the most important thing. Go to sglambchops.com today. Use promo code Candlestick20 for 20% off your order. That's sglambchops.com. Promo code Candlestick20 and start looking dope today. We're also sponsored by Cooperage Brewing. Shout out to our friends over at Cooperage. You can visit the brewery in Santa Rosa. Tons of good beers on tap there. It's a great vibe whether you want to stay indoors, outdoors. They got a food truck. Bring your dog. Bring your whole family. It's a really great spot to vibe and couldn't recommend it enough. So shout out to Cooperage. You can also order beer online. CooperageBrewing.com. That's the website. You got to be 21 or over and in the state of California. You got to order a case, but they will ship that case directly to your front door with 1-day shipping. And I got to tell you, there's not a lot of things better than that doorbell rings. You go outside, you got to sign for a package, and it's 24 beers right at your front doorstep. CooperageBrewing.com.
I'm not going to run out to the fridge and get one right now because I did that last time, but I do feel like it. I think after we're done recording here, I'm going to wind down with the rest of the slate of games and crack open another Candy Cron Hazy IPA and kick my feet up a little bit because it's been kind of a weekend, but look, man, Cooperage, their craft beer is as good as anything. I would stack it up against anything. Be the envy of your tailgates at Levi's Stadium. Grab some Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA, throw into your friends, and just look at their eyes light up and be like, whoa, this is a really amazing can because I love the 49ers, and this is like a 49ers themed can.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens to be excellent beer also, so it's really a win-win. Shout out to Cooperage and everyone in Santa Rosa, just checking boxes, stacking dubs.
Good day for it. CooperageBrewing.com. All right, let's talk about this 49ers win. Man, what an ass kicking. Holy smokes. Man, go ahead.
I texted you midway through the game. I was like, this feels like the Pittsburgh game. It felt like
almost the same score.
Completely different than the previous 3 weeks. What really stood out to me, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this point, but the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, was not allowed to just get to the top of his drop and hit his first read. He was constantly having to pad the ball a little bit. He wasn't getting the ball out super quick, and it led to the pass rush getting home. It's not like super complicated, right? Like from the 49ers defensive standpoint, they mixed up their looks pre-snap. You even saw it early in the game. I think it was a second drive. You could see the 49ers were showing a zero blitz. Trevor Lawrence audibled to something else. The audible didn't go well. It looked like it was a screen. And by the time he took the snap, he had 3 49ers on him for his second third down sack taken. And it was like, all right, this is what it's supposed to look like. The Niners secondary and their coverage units are preventing the quarterback from just throwing the ball anywhere he wants to early in the play. And it's allowing the 49ers talented defensive front to eat against a really bad pass protecting offensive line. And look, coming in, it seemed like Trevor Lawrence profiled as a type of quarterback that would give the 49ers troubles based on how the 3-game losing streak went, right? Like Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins really picked the 49ers apart because they were able to just get to the top of their drop and get the ball out. It was like lightning quick. The Niners defensive line didn't have any time to get to the quarterback, and it was the complete opposite today. So I don't know if it was Steve Wilkes being on the sideline. I don't know if it was just everybody playing better. I don't know if it was a schematic thing to where they were doing a better job of mixing up their looks and preventing Trevor Lawrence from ever getting comfortable. But it was just a total ass kicking, like you said. 221 yards of offense. The 49ers had 437, more than almost doubled them up.
In 6 more plays.
And 6 more plays, right? Like it was just like a thoroughly dominant performance, and the type of performance that during the 5-0 streak, we had them pegged as, one of, if not the best teams in the NFL. And to go on the road, playing a team also coming off of its bye, a team that had gone 13-4 in their last 17 games, and to beat them by 31 points, and to just completely answer any questions you had about their defense, at least for 1 week. It's about as impressive as a performance as they could have put out there. And so now you have to feel like, all right, maybe the 49ers get rolling again. That was their get right game in a similar way that some of their Rams games the past few years have been after losing streaks.
So a couple things. One, the Niners scored 34 points and went 1 for 4 in the red zone.
That's wild.
that's pretty nuts. Like they could have hung up 50 if they had.
Well, yeah, one of them was trying to get Christian McCaffrey that record-setting touchdown.
Right, that would have gotten him to 40.
Yeah.
And then they had but for the defense, they made 2 changes. Deommodore Lenoir played in the slot. Ambry Thomas played outside along with Travarius Ward. They moved Deommodore Lenoir down into the slot, and then it looked like I haven't crushed the all-22 just yet, but it looked like they were playing more press man, where they were tighter up on the receivers and just taking away those quick, easy throws. And lo and behold, the pass rush gets home. And I think Chase Young helped because teams weren't able to commit as much help to Nick Bosa or to Javon Hargrave or Eric Armstead. And the entire defensive line just looked new and different. And I think it's because the pressures were there and the quarterback hits were there in the 3 games that they lost. They just weren't getting the quarterback on the ground. And they got the quarterback on the ground today because of that extra split second that Lawrence had to hang on to the ball. And that was the adjustment you were hoping to see, and it worked. So, or maybe they were just more motivated because Steve Wilkes was on the sideline. TBD.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll probably find out more as the reporting trickles in over the course of today and the rest of the week in terms of how much tangible that impact actually was, or how tangible that impact actually was. But like, I don't know, the communication seemed streamlined, and you definitely saw him at least talking to his guys throughout the game, based on the TV copy that we saw. So it absolutely didn't hurt, right? I just think whatever it was, it just seemed far more cohesive than what it's looked like. And, It's probably a little bit of everything, right? It's probably the fact that they're coming off the bye. It's probably the fact that they had the extra week to really dive into whatever their issues were on the back end, and sort that stuff out. And they were, better defending the run today than they have been in what seems like a really long time. They allowed just 59 rushing yards, albeit they got ahead early, but it never felt like, it felt like the 49ers had a pretty good grasp on whatever Jacksonville was trying to do. And it's a lot easier for them to pin their ears back when they're not getting gashed in the running game like they did the previous game against Cincinnati. So,
classic complimentary football.
Complimentary football, and they won the turnover battle.
Dude, two of our keys to victory. No, you get Javon Hargrave with a sack and a half, Nick Bosa with a sack and a half, Eric Armstead with half a sack, Cleveland Ferrell with a sack, and then Chase Young at half a sack. Like, that's what you expected from this defensive line this year. And Nick Bosa was credited with a couple of hits. Hargrave was credited with 3 quarterback hits, Young with 2. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Dre Greenlaw looked a lot better today.
Fred Warner was awesome. Looked like Fred Warner again. Because in those, you mentioned this in the last couple of post-game pods, where there were times Warner just looked like he was completely befuddled by whatever was going on. And that's just not a thing that you're used to seeing. And you saw the Niners defense playing a step slow. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was all health, and we'll get to the health stuff with the offense, but I don't know if it was just getting a week off to rest and get re-energized, or if it was defensive adjustments they made or what. But Fred Warner looked like an all-pro again after having a couple of tough weeks.
Maybe it was adjusting, going with white cleats and the white socks, just kind of keeping the clean look.
Yeah.
You saw George
No, I
Kittle
would
do the
track.
same thing.
Yep.
Not coincidentally, he scored a long touchdown there.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't rule that out either.
Yeah, totally. I didn't even think about that. That's why you're one of the best.
Yeah.
No, that's just that they did this to Jacksonville, who also. How many times on the broadcast did Joe Davis and Moose Johnston say that the Jags had won 5 in a row in 5 different stadiums? Like, they harped on that point a lot. Like, not only have they won 5 in a row, but man, it's been in 5 different stadiums. So the Jags were scorching hot coming into this game and also coming off a bye week, and the Niners just throttled them. And this looked like, you said, the Pittsburgh game or the Dallas game, where it's, man, that's a pretty good team, and they just are not in the same league as San Francisco. And that's what this was supposed to be this year. This is why going into this game, the Niners are favored by 3, and you're going, man, this is going to be a tough Jags team, and we'll see what the Niners look like, because they look like they're going to lose. But if not, they should be able to dominate, because the Niners are supposed to be in that tier of elite team. And Jacksonville is supposed to be good, but definitely a tier or 2 below. And that's what it looked like today. And I think that's the kind of win the Niners needed. They, sneaking out of there with a 26-23 win would have been nice. But winning in that faction and just kind of looking more like the team we saw in the first 5 weeks, I think, is a pretty big deal.
Having Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel back, it's hard to really, like, we can quantify it and say, like, obviously Deebo Samuel had that rushing touchdown in the second half, and he does impact a little bit of what they do in the running game, and maybe that opens things up for Christian McCaffrey a little bit more. But I just think, like, what they bring is just intangible, like, attitude stuff, right? Just
Sure.
like we got 2 of the baddest MFers on the field, and like they can just raise the energy and change the tone of a game just by being there, right? And like when you have defenders basically running out of the way when Trent Williams is in open space blocking, it's like, it's just very unique, and it's not something you could ever replicate with a backup. And it just feels like the Niners are a different team when they have those guys out there. And it's not even just like numbers, like, oh, they rush better, they protect better. It's just like they just have a different feel about them when 71's out there and when 19 is out there. And I don't know if it was just, I mean, it's we've talked about like what worked with the defense, sort of like a perfect storm of things coming together. And I think you could make a similar case with the offense. And part of that equation includes, getting Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel back. Trent said after the game he was basically playing at 75-80%, and that he really didn't have a great idea of whether or not he was going to play going into the weekend. And it sounded like the reports trickled out Saturday night / Sunday morning that Trent was going to play. I was a little dubious before the game. Like, I texted you guys. I felt like, playing Trent when he's not 100% might be a little bit risky, because you might risk re-injuring it. And if he would have gotten rolled up on or took a false step or slipped in the rain or whatever it was, like, maybe this turns into a 4 to 6 week injury, and then you're like really screwed with that stretch, 2 games against the Seahawks, sandwiching the Eagles game. But it all went well. There were no new injuries coming out of the game, which is probably as positive a development as the score itself.
Yeah.
And, you have to be feeling really, really good if you're in red and gold right now at 6-3 after, what seemed like the sky was falling before the bye week.
So Deebo Samuel being in, and I was a big proponent of, hey, Trent Williams being out is a bigger deal than Deebo Samuel being out. And I think you saw it a little bit today, but Deebo in the first 3 plays motioned left to right and then stopped and did this like orbit motion back behind Purdy and McCaffrey. And the second 2 times he did that, it left McCaffrey wide open and George Kittle wide open. McCaffrey caught it for 9 yards, and then Kittle had one for 29 yards to get down into the red zone. And it's like, those 2 plays are direct results of the defense watching Deebo Samuel. If that's Ray McCloud running those orbit motions, teams are going to key on McCaffrey and Kittle still. But because it's Deebo Samuel, and got to keep track of him going left, right. Okay, now he's spinning back right. Whose assignment is what? And all of a sudden you get George Kittle running free down the middle of the field. And that's the kind of thing that just doesn't happen if McCaffrey's not there. So I thought Brock Purdy did a really nice job today for the most part, especially on those easy throws that get created. And when the Niners offense is doing that, it's really hard to stop.
Yeah, agree. We should talk about Brock Purdy here. 19 of 26, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Kyle Shanahan said after the game that Purdy's first touchdown on the Niners opening drive to when he rolled left and threw it back across the middle of the field to Brandon Ayuk was probably the worst decision he's made since coming to the 49ers. which is, I don't know.
The pick at the end of the Vikings game was really bad.
Well, right. But that was more like desperation, right? Like,
sure.
This was Kyle Shanahan basically saying like Brock had no business making that throw. And obviously the result was good based on the fact that there was a touchdown. But, it's, I don't know what it says about Brock Purdy. Like, is it a positive or negative that Brock Purdy just sort of has that mindset of like being a gunslinger? Like, obviously it worked out, but man, if that game had started with an end zone interception, then I think the game probably goes completely differently.
Yeah.
Right. But because the game started on such a positive note, then it felt like everything was just sort of rolling downhill after that. And I thought the throw to George Kittle, the second play, was it the second play of the second half? Third play of the second half.
Second play of the second half. Yeah.
Yeah. The touchdown. Just like, completely muddied pocket, defender in his grill, can't really step up. And
pump fakes.
Yeah. It seemed like, I don't know if he did that to get the safety to bite towards Brandon Ayuk in the middle of the field. But didn't even look like he could really step into that throw. And for a guy that, doesn't really have great arm strength to place the ball where he did and hit George Kittle in stride, was just a really excellent play for a guy that's played for a team that has struggled to like really hit a lot of deep shots consistently.
Yeah.
And so after that, it was like, all right, this is going to be a blowout, because at that point it was 13-3 before Kittle.
Yeah, that made it 20-3.
So then it felt like the route was on after that.
Yeah. For me, it was the Ambry Thomas fumble on the next possession, because the Jags were going down to score. That would have made it 20-10 going into the fourth quarter. It's like, okay, it's still up in the air. But yeah, that was the point. It felt like the Jags weren't going to get a stop unless the Niners turned it over. But on that throw in particular, I thought the thing he did really well, which is something that Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, really struggled with on deep throws, and it's something Purdy has struggled with as well, is trying to get too fine with it and trying to perfectly place it. Instead of, my tight end is more athletic than the guy covering him one-on-one. I'm just going to get this up into the air and out in front where he can go get it. And it wound up dropping in the breadbasket. I mean, it was a perfect throw, but he got it inside a little bit, didn't take it too far out to the boundary. It was just a really well-placed ball. And honestly, the throw to Ayuk for the touchdown back across the middle, was it a bad decision? Yeah, but I don't think he could have placed that ball a lot better. So yeah. I thought overall, Brock was really good. However, there were a couple of times, maybe 4 or 5 times, so a few times, that I thought he hesitated on some throws over the middle. And maybe it was the right thing to do. Maybe the Jags were keying on some of these throws, and so he was avoiding throwing it to a linebacker. But it felt like he got under pressure a couple times when he didn't need to. Like there was a little bit of indecisiveness there, but it's, like I said, it was a handful of plays, and that's a pretty small nitpick considering how good he was overall.
Yeah, and like the Niners offensive line from a pass protection standpoint has been like probably bottom third of the league.
They haven't been great
to this point, right? Just from pure like pass rush, or like a number of pressures allowed, or like pressure rate allowed. I think they came into this week, according to PFF, I'm pretty sure they were in the bottom third. And Purdy, frankly, had not been great under duress, and not many quarterbacks are. When they're pressured, the numbers take a pretty precipitous hit. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to look at really, I think it's going to be the 49ers Achilles heel all season,
Mm-hmm.
is the ability to pressure the quarterback and how the quarterback responds. Because I do think if you can consistently heat up Brock Purdy, you're going to get opportunities to get interceptions. And yeah, it looked like he was a little bit unsure of himself and maybe not super confident on a handful of those plays, but not throwing a pick is a way better result than than a pump fake or whatever. So we'll see. I haven't watched the tape yet. Obviously that'll come out tomorrow. Hopefully if NFL Plus gets its act together.
For real. Just bitching about NFL Plus.
Let's do the Twitter thing tomorrow where we complain about NFL Plus not having the all 22 yet.
Like 10 a.m. What am I even paying for?
I just need to let all my followers know that I'm trying to grind this tape.
Hey, here's Rory in our YouTube chat brings up a good point. YouTube.com/@Candlestick Chronicles podcast, by the way. Go to youtube.com, search Candlestick Chronicles. We're right there. Hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already there. And he asked if Christian McCaffrey's streak ending is going to affect his legacy. So Christian McCaffrey did not score a touchdown. 49ers scored 34 points, and none of them were from Christian McCaffrey. That's pretty baffling. But it snaps a streak of 17 consecutive games with a touchdown from him, including the playoffs. If he had gotten to 18, it would have set the NFL record. He instead tied the record set by Lenny Moore back in the 50s-ish, 60s. But it's a great question by Rory. Should the 49ers get rid of Christian McCaffrey now that his streak is over?
Yeah, I mean, in games where Christian McCaffrey hasn't scored a touchdown this year, the 49ers are averaging wins by 31 points. So I think that just kind of speaks for itself, right?
So is Christian McCaffrey's importance overrated?
Yes, unquestionably.
That's what I thought. I thought the exact same thing.
I just thought it was extremely selfish of Kyle Juszczyk to score the touchdown there.
Dude, that was tough for my guy, Juice. So here's my whole thing. I understand the 49ers wanted to get McCaffrey in the end zone and bringing him back in at the end of the game after they were up 27-3 late in the fourth quarter. I get, that's a fun thing to do. There was, what was it earlier this year where Shanahan didn't get someone a touchdown when they could have had one and it would have been some kind of record? Am I misremembering that happened?
It's not.
He got asked about it after a game not going for whatever record thing, and he was so basically like, "Oh, I didn't know. I had no idea."
Sure.
And it's fun, but that feels really risky in that spot. It's just giving it to Christian McCaffrey over and over and over again in a situation where the defense knows who's getting the ball in a game that you're going to win. Like we always talk about, you and I and anybody who talks about the 49ers with any regularity always talks about finding ways to limit Christian McCaffrey's workload to ensure that he is healthy for the playoff run that they're going to need him for. And now they go, and it's not that 4 touches is going to make or break his season, but it's like, man, if he gets rolled up on or he takes a shot to the head or something, like anything bad can happen. Every starter is out except for him. So he can get this touchdown record. That was a tough call for me. I didn't love that.
I don't disagree with you. I do think it was one of those records that, like, it's really hollowed ground, right? Like, you could set an NFL record for consecutive games with a touchdown. It's not like a franchise record.
Sure. Yeah.
Merger, whatever. Like this is like a real legit NFL record,
and it's not to tie the record; it was to break it. Yeah,
and it was to break it. So, I respect the effort. Honestly, the thing for me, like those were touches, 23, 24, 25, and 26 in the game for McCaffrey. If they were touches like 30, 31, 32, 33, like
that's a good point.
Then it's like, all right, we're kind of overdoing it here. But I do like he finished the game with.
Oh, he only had 22 touches.
22 touches.
So it was 20, 21, and 22.
Yeah. So I was looking at targets not receptions. Yeah.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about we're talking about like a smaller number of touches than like if Christian McCaffrey had 35 touches at that point and then they're
Yeah.
like still feeding him, then it's like, all right, guys. But he was coming off a bye. He was at 18 touches to that point. He went the entire, well, or not the entire second quarter, but there was a point, I think I texted you guys, there was like 5 minutes left in the second quarter. And he hadn't gotten a carry since the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, they had a couple weird drives. They had 2 drives with penalties that led to punts. And McCaffrey didn't get any carries on either of those. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think
It just felt risky.
Yeah, for sure.
But I had not taken into account the fact that he was only at 19 touches when they started that whole thing.
Yeah. And they're coming off a bye.
Yeah.
So if it was like the Bengals game and it was like a short week after Minnesota and he had like 30 touches at that point, I'm like, hell no, like get him off the field.
Yeah.
But
that's fair.
So I didn't love the play calling. I would have maybe like given him a slant on third down. Or fourth down from Sam Darnold rather than that little out route short of the sticks. I mean, why did Sam Darnold look like Blaine Gabbert out there?
It would have been high comedy if that got taken for a pick six. That would have been so goddamn funny.
It would have, yes.
It would have been perfect.
For sure. Do you think Mac Jones was watching that game mop up duty in the fourth quarter on the way back from Germany and being like, that could be me next year?
Yeah,
I could be the guy feeding Christian McCaffrey to break another record.
Definitely. Do you think that Bill Belichick and Bill O'Brien are watching Brock Purdy right now and like, how do we make Mac Jones look like that? Probably.
I mean, they got to be moving off of Mac in the offseason, right?
Future 49ers backup Mac Jones.
That's what I'm saying. When Sam Darnold inevitably gets his 4-year, $130 million contract,
stop.
Whoever in the offseason,
he's gonna get like two. He's not gonna get that, but he's gonna get like 2 and 65. Bet, like for sure. Atlanta. It's gonna be Atlanta. Atlanta's gonna give Darnold 2 and 65.
He'll come in and like. No, I don't even want to speak into existence, but he'll get a start or 2 here and then ball out for Kyle Shanahan with these weapons and then parlay it into a big contract and leaving the 49ers to go search for a backup, and it'll be Mac Jones. That will be very funny. Like it'll be great if and when Mac Jones comes to the 49ers and you get the media asking the right questions in his first availability. They're like, Mac, how surprised were you that the Niners didn't take you back in 2021? And then he'll be like, look, I was like very certain that I was going to the Niners. That's why I was so pissed that I last till 15 or whenever the Pats took him.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle. Kyle Madson with Candlestick Chronicles here. Was this the plan the whole time because you knew Mac Jones would be ass in New England and that he'd be available so you could really get 2 bites at the 2021 draft apple?
It's not turning out to be.
Do you know how bad you have to suck at quarterback to get pulled in a 4-point game with 2 minutes left? Yikes, they took Bailey Zappi, who hasn't played like all freaking year, and went, hey, you go try and get the game-winning drive because we know Mac isn't going to do it. That's nuts, dude.
I mean, hindsight's obviously playing a huge role here, but looking back at that 21 quarterback class, it's not aging super well. Zach Wilson too. The Niners just put it on Trevor Lawrence. Richard Sherman had some tweets, or at least one tweet I saw after the game talking about Lawrence not like having a ton of talent, but like the tape not really showing that he's been awesome. And I think I agree to an extent because it's been so like he's been super reliant on screens, right? We saw some of that today.
A lot of
super
screens.
reliant on just getting the ball out early. They don't have like anywhere near the downfield passing attack as some of the elite offenses in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But Sherman just sort of pointing out he's not playing that well. Like, all right, even if you are high on Trevor Lawrence, we're looking at really like of those, 4 guys, 5 guys, 5 guys. One of them is like you feel comfortable saying is a franchise quarterback in this moment.
In Lawrence?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he's the only one, and it's not even close.
Trey's already gone. Zach Wilson can't be replaced by Aaron Rodgers soon enough. Mac Jones is going to be gone. It's not great.
Yikes. I found what I was looking for, by the way,
Great.
with the touchdowns thing and Shanahan not knowing how many touchdowns a guy had. It was week 4, and Christian McCaffrey had 4 touchdowns, and they got it at the 1, and they had Purdy sneak it in instead of giving it to McCaffrey for a 5th touchdown. And after the game, Shanahan said, quote, honestly, I had no idea until I just came in here that he had 4 touchdowns. I never know that type of stuff. Like, bullshit. He definitely knows.
He can recall like a 2nd and 7 play call from 2009.
Yeah.
Like,
he's like, he had how many touchdowns? I had no idea. Okay, Kyle. I didn't know he had 4 touchdowns in the game, but I knew he had one in 17 consecutive games. He can tell you what each of those touchdowns were and what the play call was and what the situation was, but didn't know he had 4 in a game. Okay, dude. I think today was a makeup for that.
Could be.
Like, okay, fine. I hosed you out of a 5 touchdown game. Let me try and get you this 18th in a row.
So the Niners house Jacksonville. They're going to be huge favorites against Tampa Bay. Who? What did they do today?
They had a big win over the Tennessee Titans, 20-6.
20-6. So they're riding high at 4-5. Feels like the 49ers are going to be at least 8-point, maybe 10-point favorites next week.
Oh.
I mean, it does have trap game written all over it, and we can talk about it as this week goes. But it's Tampa and then Seahawks on Thanksgiving, and then at Philadelphia the following week, December 3rd, and then home to the Seahawks December 10th. So this is going to be a trap game.
Did you say 8.5?
I said somewhere between 8 and 10.
8.5 feels like the number to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think we're 9.5 and let it get bet up to 10. I don't know.
Yeah. I did think there were still a lot of Niners penalties today, and I still think penalties are really problematic. It just feels like whenever they have an offensive penalty, there's like a 1-to-1 ratio in like unsuccessful drives. Like every single time they have a holding call, or I don't know that they had like any illegal formation or illegal procedure plays or whatever today. They did have Brandon Ayuk with an offensive pass interference, so it was pretty blatant. That like those back-to-back drives in the second quarter, it just feels like the offense leaves, I don't know, 10 points out on the field every game because of like a couple penalties. Like it's so much of their offense is relying on momentum, and it just feels like the momentum just gets beat over the head with a sledgehammer every time they commit a penalty because the playbook, you can't be as creative when you're playing, when it's 1st and 20 as opposed to 1st and 10, and you can do play action or a run and then set up play action on 2nd down. Like, so that's one thing they need to clean up is the penalties overall. And also I know a couple of the like the penalties on Trevarius Ward and some guys in the secondary felt a little ticky-tacky. But like the illegal contacts and the pass interferences, like they need to stop gifting away yards with those.
I agree.
Niners had 7 penalties for 90 yards. Had they not just blown the Jaguars out today, I think that would have been a much bigger talking point coming out of the game, because 90 yards of penalties is a lot.
That's so many.
And in a close game, like that can be like a huge factor in losing.
Yeah.
So I think Shanahan alluded to it after the fact, saying they he obviously happy with the win, but he didn't feel like they played perfect or close to perfect. And I would guess those penalties are a big reason why. And one of those was like Trent Williams got beat.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Trent Williams got beat and the guy was going to just kill Brock Purdy, and Trent just like held him a little bit to prevent
good foul. Good foul.
So yeah, like good foul, I guess. But still, I think
15 of those yards were on Shanahan for being out on the field. That was a nuts play. That was a wild play.
So I kind of thought in real time that like the referees might have blown the whistle because they thought
I did too.
Ambry Thomas gave himself up because he just like dove on the ball and sort of like held it there for a beat, and then he got up and ran. Typically that play's blown dead because whenever a player sort of gives himself up like that, the play's deemed over. officials didn't see it that way. The Niners sideline was like half on the field. D Winters was like 10 yards on the field. Kyle Shanahan, for some reason, is standing on the field.
He was way out there.
But then, like, Trevor Lawrence hits Ambry Thomas at like 5 yards into the end zone, like hits him right in the knee.
That was a scary hit.
Like, for all the penalties that get called anytime anybody touches a quarterback, or like Nick Bosa tackling him because he thought, he wasn't sure that Lawrence got the ball out or not, so he takes him to the ground and gets flagged for roughing the passer. Like, for all the soft penalties called like on players tackling quarterbacks, and then for a quarterback to like hit a dude in the knee, like well beyond the play being over.
Yeah. Straight up diving at his knees.
Just kind of wild to me. And maybe the rest
if that dude, if
bewildered by everything that happened.
If Ambry switch roles there, if Ambry's doing that to Trevor Lawrence, he is flagged, ejected, and doing 25 to life.
And a fight breaks out. Like
man.
Jaguars offensive lineman is going to fight him.
Well, did you see Lenore didn't even celebrate? He turned around looking at Lawrence like, "What the hell are you doing?" He's doing the, come on, man. Yeah, that was wild. I'm with you.
Nice hustle by Lawrence. You love
really
to see
good hustle. Takes no talent to hustle.
It was hard 90s all the way back to defending that play.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It was fine, and Shanahan was joking about it after the game and said, "Oh, that was strategic, so our offense could go get a touchdown." They did 7 plays, 81 yards. They just kind of methodically beat the Jags down at that point. But all that aside, just a really excellent play from Ambry Thomas to not only make the hit, but as he's going down, kind of poke at the ball and knock it out, and then to recover it, and then to have the wherewithal to get up and go. It's just a really nice play from Ambry Thomas. And I think when you're looking at what the secondary looked like today, I don't think maybe this is just a club they have in their bag for situational use or whatever, but I don't think you can go back to Isaiah Oliver. At least not right away.
No, it didn't
Thomas
seem
was
like
too
it.
good today.
Thomas was good today. I mean, Ambry Thomas has had kind of an interesting career. Like, he was a 3rd-round pick. He had colitis in college at Michigan, which basically cost him a year. His last year in school was a pandemic season.
Yeah, and he didn't play.
He just had he didn't play. He had a weird college career. Comes in, and as a rookie in 21, like at the end of the season, is like getting meaningful snaps at the end of the year. Like, he had that interception against the Rams in week 18 that got the team to the playoffs. And then for, what I had heard, he just like didn't have a good offseason. It was one of those, like, we talk all the time about players making the biggest strides in their career from their first season to their second. But it's very easy to take a step back if you play well as a rookie. Like, you need to like work really hard in the off season to make sure that you take that leap, because nothing's given. And sometimes guys fall into that trap, right? From what I heard, it sounded like Thomas fell into that trap. And then he was basically a no-show last year, right? Like, didn't really play all that much. And there were serious questions even going into training camp this year. Like, was Ambry Thomas going to make the team? He makes the team. And even to this point, it wasn't like he played very well. Like, the Niners had been experimenting with Isaiah Oliver in the slot or Diamador Lenore in the slot because Sammy Womack lost that job and got hurt. And, a big part of that decision not to have Lenore in the slot earlier was that Ambry Thomas just wasn't nearly as good on the outside. And so they needed Lenore on the outside. And then they felt like the best version of their secondary was Lenore on the outside and Oliver on the inside. Oliver gets cooked a fair bit, right? Makes some plays in the running game. But then the 49ers decide today that despite Evan Ingram being a really good tight end who lines up outside and maybe it making sense for Oliver to match up with him, the Niners go with Lenore. And Thomas plays really well. And so, like, Ambry Thomas being good, like becoming a good, useful player to the 49ers would be a pretty substantial development for them, because it's felt like to this point, like they have 2 good starting corners, but you worry about the depth behind Mooney Ward and Diamador Lenore. And Thomas developing into like a plus, like an asset there, would dramatically change the way you feel about it, because, at that point, like, if you have a good third corner, then at least you can, absorb an injury. Like, say
Mm-hmm.
Mooney Ward strains a hamstring and has to miss a week, and it's the Eagles game. Like, who knows how important that depth could be. And
Mm-hmm.
so Thomas today is at least taking a step towards, okay, maybe now he's going to build some confidence, and maybe this is a launch point towards, okay, Ambry Thomas's emergence and providing more and giving the 49ers more depth on that back end that they haven't previously had. So we'll see. Obviously one game and really just one play isn't going to like define that. But if he continues playing like this, like he did today, and makes a turnover here and there, like that could be huge for the 49ers defense, because that's a serious question in terms of like depth in the secondary.
Well, and it wasn't just the turnover though. Like he was guarding Calvin Ridley a lot, and Calvin Ridley had 2 catches for 20 yards.
Yeah, that's true.
I know he interfered with him on the one where Ridley got him, but for the most part he was fine. Christian Kirk goes 6 for 104. I think most of that was out of the slot. I didn't think Ambry Thomas was like a huge issue today, and part of the reason that they went to Oliver was because at the beginning of the year, Thomas in that week 2 game against the Rams just got flambéed. And so they took him out, and Isaiah Oliver had a good week too, and it was just kind of that was it from there. So, like I said, maybe it winds up being a mix and match type of thing. And okay, Thomas isn't playing well this week, so they're going to go back to Oliver inside with Lenore outside. But if Thomas is going to do what he did as a rookie, where we saw him come in, I think it was week 13 against the Seahawks, I think, and from there he just kind of got better every week. And you just kind of saw him incrementally improve, which is why I think a lot of people were so high on him going into year 2, because he just got continually better in year 1 when he got to play more. So if he follows that same track this year, where he just kind of gets better as he goes, then the Niners might have fallen backwards into a better secondary over the bye week. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you get better secondary play and the pass rush starts getting home and they rack up 5 sacks.
Exactly. That's probably the most important point of all of this. Like the secondary playing well is essentially what allows the pass rush to play well.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we learned over the 3-game losing streak, and in particular the Vikings and Bengals game, was like, doesn't matter how good the pass rush is if the quarterback's getting it out in 2 seconds flat.
Yeah.
Like no pass rush is gonna be impactful when the quarterback can just get the ball out before the pass rush gets there.
Yep. It's so nuts looking at Brock Purdy's line today and just being like, yeah, no, he bounced back. He was good. 19 of 26. It's 73.1% completions. 296 yards. He went at 11.4 yards per attempt. 3 touchdowns, no picks. That's a pretty good game.
He's had multiple like games this year where he's averaging 10, 11 yards per attempt, which is
it's so
phenomenal. Low. Like if you're at like 8.5 for a season, like you might lead the league.
Yeah. And it's not like it's not Matt Ryan, the year he in 2016 was the MVP, was at like 9.2. And that was a crazy high number. So if you're at 11, and that's the thing is if his ADOT, if his average depth of target was like 4.5 yards or something stupid, then you'd write some of that off. But he's pushing it down the field. He's making good throws. Thought he was much better today. Not that he was really bad, but I thought it was really clear today how much the Niners defense and allowing the offense to play from ahead helps Brock Purdy.
I'm pulling up the tweet I saw. Yeah, so this is from Next Gen Stats. All 3 of Brock Purdy's passing touchdowns against the Jaguars were over 10 air yards with a time to throw of over 2.5 seconds. 5 quarterbacks have 3+ such touchdowns in a game this season. Purdy is the only one to do it twice.
Wow. Dang.
So, like
creating out of structure.
Yeah, creating out of structure, but also like being aggressive and making throws downfield, right? Like that's I mean the Kittle play was within structure. He just had to wait for that play to develop. The Ayuk play, he rolls to his left. Maybe that was a questionable decision. The Juszczyk play, he rolls out to his right and hits Juszczyk, who's wide open. But those are not plays that Jimmy Garoppolo makes. Like, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo, and this is not, we don't need to relitigate the fact that Brock Purdy's a hell of a lot better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't make any of those touchdown passes today. Right? Like, it doesn't feel like maybe use check if he gets outside the pocket. Like, one of Jimmy Garoppolo's issues, he like would never get outside the pocket, and when you did, you feared for your life because you thought Garoppolo was going to throw a pick every time he left the pocket, right?
Yeah, I think he the Kittle one is a great example of how different the two quarterbacks are. And again, this is not a drag Jimmy Garoppolo session, but
he sucks.
But no, he's trash. And so no, I don't mean that. No, but when the pocket breaks down on the George Kittle touchdown, when the pocket breaks down, Purdy sits in it and creates just enough space to get a throw off, and then makes a good, accurate throw in a muddy pocket. Jimmy, when the pocket breaks down like that, he's not effective. He's either getting rid of it short, or he's panic throwing it to the middle of the field to nobody, or he's trying to bail out and like doing that thing where he like spins around and gets all disoriented, and it doesn't work out. So I think that play just by itself is a really good indicator of one of the things that Brock Purdy does better than Garoppolo, and that's navigate a collapsing pocket.
Agreed.
That's all to say Garoppolo would not have made that throw.
Agreed. Is Kyler Murray back?
Many are saying, hey, do you know who's not back?
The Giants of New York?
The New York Football Giants. I'm going to read these halftime stats that I know this is just for the live audience. The Giants at halftime have 1 first down. They're 0 for 6 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. They're 0 for 1 in the red zone. They have 27 yards on 22 plays.
Yeah. Don't love that matchup, taking your third string quarterback who struggles to complete passes on the road against a division rival who happens to have one of the best defenses in the league. And you lose your left tackle who's carted off the field with a leg injury at some point. So the scene, man, as the kids say, is tough.
Washington hanging in there with Seattle.
Oh?
Yeah, it was 9-9 last I looked.
Okay. So the Niners are 6-3. What's Detroit doing? Detroit's winning that game, right?
Detroit was up 7 last I looked.
Okay. So yeah, maybe the Niners don't gain any ground on Detroit this week, but we'll talk about the
do you trust the Chargers to come back from 7 down? No? Okay.
I don't trust the Chargers in any capacity.
Do you trust the Chargers? Nope.
I do not. How about the Vikings winning with Josh Dobbs again, beating the Saints of New Orleans?
Dude, he was too good. That's why the Cardinals traded him.
Just couldn't have that competition for Kyler Murray.
No.
Needed to let Kyler breathe a little bit and not have Josh Dobbs breathing down his neck.
1000%. Dobbs can play, dude.
So Philly's on their bye. They're 8-1. Detroit, if they beat the Chargers, they're 7-2. Niners look pretty firmly implanted into the 3 seed at 6-3. No matter.
Chargers just tied it.
Oh, Chargers just tied it.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Niners hold the tiebreaker over the Seahawks?
Currently, yeah.
Okay,
because of in division record.
Okay, if the Seahawks win, the Niners are still the 3 seed, while Seattle's currently the 5.
Correct.
And I think Seattle would jump. No, because the 7 teams is screwing me up. Yeah, Seattle can't jump New Orleans, even though they have a better record because New Orleans is the division leader at this point.
Hey, did they bench Derek Carr or did he get hurt?
Good question.
Thanks. Yeah, 9-9 Washington and Seattle at the half.
That's got to be a pretty ugly football game, I guess. I don't know, man. You have any other big takeaways before we get out of here?
No, nothing that is jumping out at the moment. Like I said, I got to go confirm a couple things with what they did coverage-wise. But, I mean, I do. I didn't.
Just got to go have a conversation with the tape. Let the tape talk to you a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be in there just grinding in a dark room.
Yeah.
No, I that was what it should look like. And now all of a sudden, you start thinking, okay, this is a team that can be the 1 seed. They now have a couple of hurdles to get over, but dominating in that way not only keeps them atop the division, but it gives you confidence that, okay, that team's still in there. They've righted the ship a little bit, and now you feel good about them hanging with Seattle on the road in a short week, hanging with the Eagles on the road, and those are games they're going to need to win if they want to be the 1 seed. So
I'm going to ask you this question after every post-game pod to end it. And shout out to our good buddy, Matt Mayoko. Would the Niners trade Brock Purdy for Trevor Lawrence straight up? This is going to be an ongoing bit. After every game,
here's the hard part. Here's the hard part about it.
At the end of our reaction pod, I'm going to ask if the Niners would trade Brock Purdy straight up for the opposing quarterback.
Here's the hard part about it, because Mayoko couched it with, when you look at the contracts and stuff,
yeah,
the Niners would probably believe they have a better team with Brock Purdy and the slew of Pro Bowlers and All Pros around him than Patrick Mahomes, where they're getting rid of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and everybody else. They'd have to punt.
They'd have to cut half their team if they absorb Patrick Mahomes' contract.
And that was the point. That was the point Mayoko was making. But
right.
For the sake of the bit, no, I don't think they would.
Yeah, because you have to pay Lawrence
next year.
Did he already sign? He already signed his contract, didn't he?
Nope.
Oh, not yet?
That'd be nuts if he did. He's only in year 3 right now. No, he can't. Oh, yeah. Not till after year 3.
Not till after this season. Yeah. So he'll get his $50 million a year or whatever after this season. So you still have a year or two of Brock Purdy not being paid at that level. So, but yeah, I like that bit. Shout out to Matt.
It's a good bit. I can't wait till next week when you ask it about Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I will. Baker carves up the Niners for 4 touchdowns. We're like, are we sure?
I like Baker. Baker can do some stuff.
All right, let's get out of here. Everybody, appreciate you guys hanging with us on YouTube as we stream live after every game when we can, of course. Everybody listening on the podcast feeds, please give us 5-star reviews if you can. Those mean the world. Subscribe to YouTube. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when we are going live. And you can hang out with us in real time instead of having to wait till Monday morning to listen to the podcast. So we will talk to you guys very soon. We appreciate all the support as always. Shout out to Cooperage and Lamb Chops. And we will talk to everybody later in the week.
Bye.